Well, hello and welcome to another RiderCamTV video, and we are up with our friends at Damerells Motorcycles up in Fradden in Indian Queens, just outside of Truro and Austell, but down in Cornwall. And look at this, we've got the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650 to take out. A 650-ish cc. We'll put all the facts and figures up on the video throughout so that you know what they are, because they don't provide those books anymore. It's all online, which is great, cuts down on money, but it's a real pain when you turn up and they say, oh, can you take this one out, and you really don't know about all of the facts and figures. So about 650cc, it's got enough horsepower, but let's face it, a bike like this isn't about the horsepower, it's about the prowess, about the ride, about the style of the bike. A modern classic, isn't it? And this, I'm guessing, is pitched against the Triumph Bonneville type range. It's that sort of bike, so it's got a big bench seat, nice old style, brought into the 21st century looking bike. Loads of chrome, as you can see, it's shining because the weather's a bit strange here at the moment. What a classic looking bike. Royal Enfield plastered everywhere. And they've obviously got a huge following, haven't they? Royal Enfield is a really well-known make. It's been going since God was in short trousers, I think. And I really like what they've done. A modern classic, bringing those classic bikes up to the modern age, fitting them with 21st century gizmos and gadgets, but in the style and hopefully in the ride of the original bikes. Now, jumping on it, first impressions, the seat is hard. It is rock hard, absolutely rock hard. It'll be interesting to see what that's like to ride. I don't feel like I'm pulled forward too much. The pegs are very wide. I don't know whether you can see, but the pegs are right out next to my legs here, sticking right out. So it'll be interesting to see what that's like to ride. But without further ado, let's do it. Let's get out on the road, see what it's like. So first impressions, the seat, really hard when you sat on it. But when you're riding, because the weight of your backside has kind of changed a little bit with your legs coming up onto the pegs, it's actually really good, really comfy. Brakes are a bit spongy, but they do work. Very well weighted, very well weighted. Not 100% sure of the weight of this bike, but it's not very heavy at all. If you think about the adventures that we ride being 260, 270 kilos, I mean, this is nowhere near it. But it's a 650 twin, and it goes really well. Nice and planted. My arms feel like they're just the right width apart, don't feel like they're too far apart or too thin. Let's just get out onto the dual carriageway. Looks like the traffic's quite heavy here. And you can get up to speed really quite quickly on it. It's got a lot of, it feels like it's got a lot of torque. I'm not sure that it has got a huge amount of torque, but it feels like it's got more than enough torque. Now the seating position, it's almost like you would be on an adventure bike, a very sit up and beg type seating position. It does feel like the handlebars are just slightly a little bit too far forward, so you kind of do feel like you're sat forward a little bit, but nothing abnormal and nothing uncomfortable. And you've got quite a lot of movement that you can make on the seat, so you know, this, it's almost as if anybody can get on and ride this, no matter how long or short your arms might be. And because the handlebars have got the bolts on it, you could angle them back anyway to suit your needs. So we're going to head off here, which is why I didn't overtake all of those cars, because I didn't want to get in front of that caravan and slow them down and cause a bit of a problem. Now obviously it's a naked bike, and you are going to get quite a lot of wind against you, but you know, the style of this bike, that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Feeling the wind, feeling the pressure on yourself. Now the seating position, coming back to the seating position, my legs feel just about right actually. They seem to feel like they're at 90 degrees on my knees, so they're not bent abnormally, you know, they're not uncomfortable. Seems really quite a comfortable position to be sat in. But I have noticed, now I'm not fishing around for the gears or the brake pedals or the brake levers on my feet, but they are quite close to the foot peg. Now the foot peg being quite big, in order to change gear and all of that sort of jazz, you kind of have the foot peg in the middle of your, or just underneath the arch of your foot. So to find your way with the gear selector is a little bit tighter than on a lot of bikes, but that's something you'd get used to. The brake pedal down the bottom is really quite close to the engine casing, so you've kind of got to fish about. And another thing is, you know, it's one of those things that you're going to get used to if this is the bike for you and if this is the bike that you buy. In terms of instruments at the front, we've got a speedo, analog speedo, with kilometers per hour in it as well, and they're really quite easy to read, which is nice, because lots of bikes in the UK on the speedo, if they're analog, you've got the miles per hour, which is good because that's what we ride to in the UK, but you can't very often make out the kilometers per hour, and if you do take the bike abroad, it's sometimes a little bit odd, so lots of people end up putting little stickers on against the corroborating kilometers per hour on the miles per hour dial, if that makes sense. Then you've got a rev counter on the right hand side, but on the speedometer, which are nice analog dials, keeping to that theme of a modern classic, there is a digital readout, and that digital readout's got some really basic stuff in there, but basic being the stuff that you need. So you've got your fuel gauge, you've got your odometer, and that's kind of all you need on it, really. I mean, do you really need anything else? There's obviously no hand guards and that sort of stuff on this style of bike. Dare say if you wanted to, you could fit them. When you click the buttons, you know that you've clicked them. There's good feedback so that you know without having to look down. The indicator is in just the right place for your thumb because of where you're holding on to the handlebar. The horn, we'll get to the horn a little bit later because that's really quite good for a bike like this. The suspension as we're riding along, I thought that it was going to be quite a firm bike and quite uncomfortable, but in actual fact it's soaking up these bumps and this kind of uneven tarmac really, really well, and I don't feel like I'm being jostled about. Hopefully it comes through on my voice that it's not like wavering quite a bit. Every now and then you get a bigger bump and you can probably hear it in my voice, but most of it seems quite smooth. On the right hand side, on your switch gear, you've got your kill switch and your starter, and that is about it. Now, what can I see around me? Well, I can see everything because I haven't got a screen and all that sort of jazz in front of me stopping me seeing stuff, but what I can see in these massive mirrors, and you know, all these bikes that fit new stuff, they fit all this new fangled shaped mirrors and all of that sort of stuff, but round. You know, it's the best shape. It almost goes with anything, but what it does do is gives me a massive good view behind me on both sides. And what I do like about it is if you've got them in the right place, I like to have a bit of my arm actually in the mirror because it gives my brain a chance to show the perspective and kind of judge that distance that you can see behind. Really, really good mirrors. Really comfortable bike, and it's really quite planted in the corners as well. I mean, I'm hoping that the road opens up a little bit and we can get on a little bit and get past this guy, which we're going to be able to. You know, that's it. Now that's at the speed limit, no problem whatsoever. Just a really, really smooth, just a really, really smooth, progressive release of power. That's all I can say. You know, it's got everything you should need power wise. It just soaks up the bumps. Really like it. And the last video that I rode was the Royal Enfield Meteor, which was the 350. Now the 350 got more than enough power for anyone really, because we're not on about racing on the road. But that went really well, and it put me in a different place. It was almost like on a bike like this isn't about racing around using the speed limit as a target and getting up to the speed limit, but you could still do that. But this bike for me is all about, let's have a bit of enjoyment, let's enjoy being out on the bike. And I think I said it on the Meteor video, when you listen to music, you can listen to lots and lots of different music, and each track puts your head and your mind in a totally different place and reminds you of sad things, happy things, all sorts of things. And the Meteor was the first bike that I'd ridden that had actually put my head in a different headspace, rather than it just being a bike and whether it was good or whether it was bad. It actually made me think about what I would be doing with the bike. And this is much the same. I really like the modern classic style, because it's like you're riding a really old bike, but with the advantage of having it up to the modern day. You know, there's no carburetors to mess about with. There will be people out there that say, well, carburetors, they're not an issue. But every time I've seen a bike or heard of somebody talking about a bike with a carburetor, they've had to tweak it, it's been running rich or not rich enough, or whatever that means. Because as you know, I'm not technical at all. But this is injectors, you know, modern stuff. I think there's a few things that they could have perhaps gone a little bit more modern, as opposed to having things like the lights. They're clearly light bulbs. You know, this day and age, most things are LED. It means for a cheaper production, I guess, but also it means that those bulbs aren't prone to go and, you know, fail so much. They're a lot brighter, they take less power, you know, that sort of thing. So I'm quite surprised they didn't do that on the bike. But to say that you own a Royal Enfield Interceptor, you know, even the name inspires something exciting, doesn't it? And that sound, you know, we're doing 25, it's a 30-mile-an-hour limit road, we're just trickling along, and the engine, it's just purring. It's just like, if you want power, you got it, you don't need to use it, because I'm quite happy riding at this sort of speed. That's what the bike's saying to me. I'm thinking, yeah, this is really smooth. And the thing that surprises me, because it's a twin, is that there is relatively low amounts of vibration going through the handlebars or the pegs. And I thought, wow, there's going to be a lot of vibration on this bike, and I can feel it. So I'm doing 50 and it's about nearly 3,500 revs, and I can feel the vibration through my feet on the pegs, but it's not irritating, and it's nothing that I think would be a massive issue, but you can feel it. There's no vibrations that I can feel that are making my hands numb, but there is vibration there, so it's not a vibrationless bike, if that makes sense. But my gosh, it's a pleasure to ride this bike. I really do like it. Does that mean that I'm getting a little bit older, or does it mean that I'm appreciating the classics a little bit more than I ever used to? You can make your decision and put it in the comments below as to whether Toby is getting old, or whether he's just appreciating the classic style and the classic bikes that are being made into the modern age. And part of it is because I'd never, before we put this channel together, had the opportunity to ride it. And to be fair, I'd kind of never had the inclination to ride these sort of bikes, but I'm glad I am, because, you know, if I was lucky enough to win the lottery, you know, would I go out and buy another bike? Would I just stick with the 1250 GSA that I've got? Or would I go out and get a bike for a different purpose? I don't know. But now that I've been able to look at lots of these bikes, perhaps I would think about, you know, let's try something different. And I think a bike like this would definitely be in the running, definitely. There's no two ways about it, because the adventure bike is lovely to ride, and the adventure bike will do anything. It will do everything that you throw at it, go anywhere that you want to go at it. Now these bikes, I don't know, I just get the feeling that they're kind of for a different purpose. And I know that sounds really weird and really, oh, I nearly got hit by a bird, really deep. But if you wanted to tour on a bike like this, I'm sure that you could, and I'm sure you'd love every second of it. If you wanted to go out on the gentleman's ride, do they call it, you'd be able to do it. It's got everything. It's got everything, apart from cruise control, that sort of thing, but it's a different style of bike. And I really do really quite like these old bikes. I think I might be a modern convert. Oh, I don't know what's happening to me. Hello everyone. I'm on my next I'm saying on the video riding here that I don't know what's going on with me. Perhaps you want to put comments down below as to whether Toby is...
Oh no, don't do comments!
Whether Toby is like 40 something, and I'm not letting on how old, but 40 something. But it appears to be that I like all these classic bikes. Does it mean that I'm getting old, or does it mean that I'm just appreciating the classic bikes because I've never been able to ride them before? I just don't know. But we're here with the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650. We'll put all the stuff up here in terms of torque and horsepower. But bikes like these, they're not for talking about torques and horsepower, are they? They're talking about the enjoyment of the ride. And I really liked it at the end.
Let's go then.
No, really liked it. So this is a twin cylinder 650. And I thought, oh, it's going to be vibey as hell, because that's what I kind of have in my head from these old bikes, really vibey as hell, unpleasant to ride. And the reason that people still ride those old bikes are because they want to reminisce about when they were young, perhaps. Couldn't have been further from the truth. There was a little bit of vibration through the pegs, not going to lie, and a tiny bit through the handlebars, but nothing that would cause me a problem at all. And it was just, I would say, sublime riding along, and you've got that pop, 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 pop as you're going along. And I was back in my tweed, or back in my gentleman's suit, and I was out in the middle of the Yorkshire Dales or Cornwall Dales riding around, and it was back to the 1950s, and people were riding T-Fords or whatever they rode back then, and there was animals in the fields. It was lovely, and that's where these sort of bikes seem to take me.
You get out much?
Yeah, I do get out quite a bit on my bike, but it's a totally different style than the adventure riding style, you know, the sit up and beg like armchair. But the riding experience on this isn't much different. So if I get on the bike, where you're sat is very much like the same position I'm sat on my GS. I was really surprised, because I thought, I don't know what I thought actually. I don't know whether I thought that it was going to be bad or worse, or a great bike or a bad bike, but I'm pleasantly surprised. It was a really nice bike. I'd still have the Meteor. Love that little Meteor, but this has got more power. Up to speed really, really quickly. It seems to have lots of torque. Whether or not the numbers are big, I don't know. But it seems to have enough torque to just power through stuff. And I didn't feel that I was in, you know, running away. The engine braking is really good. Suspension's really good. But I did think, come and have a look at this seat. Now this seat, do they call it something special, like a
horrendous
seat?
It looks awful.
It does look awful. And when you first get on the bike and you've got your feet on the floor, it feels like you're sat on a board. Really, really, really. One of the hardest seats I've actually sat on. But then when you ride, because your legs are coming up, almost puts a different, look at that. It almost puts, changes the weight, or where the weight's going down through your bum, doesn't it? And it was actually really comfy. It was almost like a memory foam seat. That's what it felt like. Really comfy. And of course you could, it felt like I was a little bit forward, but then you could just scoot forward to rectify it, or you could go down and pretend you're racing, I don't know, pretend you're delivering the post in the wall, I don't know. But really, really comfy position. Now, one thing that I did find, my knees felt like they were 90-degree angle. They weren't overly stretched. However, when you look at this down here, from where I sit, the brake, what do you call it, lever, brake lever, and
the brake lever.
That's it,
the
yeah.
rear brake lever, actually.
Oh, the rear brake
there
lever,
you go,
that's the
what
one.
you're looking for.
I had to fish about with it first couple of times that I needed it, because it's almost kind of excuse me, it's almost kind of hidden underneath there, and that I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting it to be there, but you know, you get used to these things when you're riding them, don't you? The gear selector the other side is the same length, but bearing in mind you've got to get your leg or your foot underneath it, and it's just getting used to it when you ride it, but it's really quite you've really got to push your foot down to get underneath it.
Maybe that can be adjusted.
Might be able to. I'm sure there's a way of adjusting it, like angle grinding it off or something. Put another one on. But what a beautiful bike, don't you think?
I like the look of it. Like I've said before, my dad had bikes like this design when I was a kid, you know, in the year 4 and yeah, they're right, but they don't actually float my boat because they just don't. Got to be honest.
Well,
but it's a nice bike.
There is a bike for everybody, isn't there?
Yeah.
But are we looking at these sort of bikes as they float my boat as being the only bike that I want? I don't know. Anyway, back to the bike.
Back to the bike.
So we come over to this handheld area. Same Honda switch gear, really good. You get some really good clicks back, so you know it's like Honda, isn't it? I know it's Royal Enfield, but it reminds me of Honda, so I don't know whether they share their stuff. And it's really basic up here. Mark's just flicking things. It's made of good plastic, but really good pronounced clicks and stuff. And then up the front you've got your two analog instrument panels. You've got your speedo on the left and your RPM on the right. And again, like the Meteor, I really like the fact that they've got the miles per hour here, but the kilometers per hour you can actually read, because on lots of bikes you can only read the miles per hour and the kilometers are like minuscule. And then you've got the digital readout, which has got your fuel and your odometer, and there's nothing else. But do you need anything else? I don't think you do.
Not on this bike, honestly.
No. You've got, it obviously tells you whether you're in neutral or not, and you've got all the normal obligatory things like your indicator things, your high beam, ABS, your fuel and your engine,
so it has
battery
ABS
sort
as
of
well.
stuff. Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
That's pretty cool.
Now, I did find the brakes a little bit, not spongy, but not as reactive as my GS. So you had to plan a little bit further ahead. Not that there's anything wrong with them, but they weren't as like grippy, if that makes sense. And then coming round to the front, and I wonder why they've done this. Because this is a modern classic, isn't it? A modern take on the old Interceptors, isn't it?
Yep.
They've put the round headlights on, brilliant, because that goes with everything that was. But they've put bulbs in all of the lights. And I'm thinking, well, you've brought the rest of the bike into the 21st century. Was there not a way of putting LEDs? Was there a way of not putting LED?
You holding that tree?
Yeah. Yeah, I branched out. Was there not a way of putting LEDs in the lights because they fail less?
Presume Meteor have
yeah, some,
LED light.
some, but presumably cheaper to make. They fail less, and they're much brighter, aren't they? So I wonder why they've stuck to those. But you've got beautiful wheels, beautiful tyres. And I like these sort of things as well. I don't know whether they were on the original ones. You got like gaiters protecting the thing that goes in and out.
It's called suspension, I think.
Oh, that's the one. That's the one. But
these tyres are made by Seat.
Oh, like the Meteor.
Like the Meteors, and these ones are called Zoom Cruise Fs.
Yeah. So you can cruise.
Zooming and cruising.
Zooming and cruising. And then you come to the engine. So what I really do like about it is that they have stuck with the old style.
Brushed aluminium.
Yeah, but they've stuck with the old style that makes you think this is a carburettor, but you've got none of the hassles of a carburettor. And I'm no engineer. I've got no clue how that works. I just get on it, press the button, do what I need to do and go. But anybody that I've ever spoke to, that I've spoken about, and they've been talking about carburettors has been running too rich or too not rich. I don't know what the term is.
You have to balance them.
And then, like Mark said, you've got to balance them.
Well, horrific.
This gets rid of all that, but it still looks like it. Loads of chrome, so you know, fill your boots with your cleaning after you've been out, or don't take it out in the wet and don't get it dirty like we're getting it. But look at this, a standard fender extender.
That is a massive fender extender.
Yeah. And you get two massive exhaust pipes that come right out. Again, bulbed lights. Not sure why they've done that, because you could still have the same surrounds, the same shape. And you got a nice grab handle for your pillion. Well, there's not one there, but there is like a handle there, presumably for putting it up on the centre stand, of which this has. And it's so light, I nearly flew over because I put it down so quick, used to mine. And little pegs with Royal Enfield actually embroidered into them, or embossed.
I was going to say embroidered, is that a real term?
Yes, it's all real term, but we're going to get to the magical part now.
Okay, stand clear of the afterburner.
This is the magical part. So firstly, I guess you want to hear it ticking over. Isn't that nice? And it sounds meaty, doesn't it? I love it. And you get a little bit of a pop on there as well. But the reason I turned the ignition on was because of this. Now, how many bikes have we reviewed now, Mark?
More than two.
More than two. And how many bikes have had decent horns, much like the horns that we have on ours?
Don't start me on the horns.
Oh, he's getting jittery. Hold that camera straight. Don't chuck it. Don't get upset. Listen to this.
Wow. Proper horn.
Now, if they could fit a horn on a bike that's a relatively cheap bike, and I'm not saying that, you know, it's cheap, but it's a good price. And I'm not going to talk about the price because it's different around the world, isn't it? And the prices go up and down. But if they can put a horn like that, as standard, on a bike like this, and I'm not saying a bike like this in a derogatory way, but why can't they put it on all of the bikes? That is a really good horn. I was so surprised when I beeped it. I nearly came off. But what a lovely little bike. It's lovely to ride. I think I did an overtake as well on the way here.
You did.
Yeah.
You did.
Really nice overtake.
Well, you know, do you want me to critique?
No thanks. But we didn't break the speed limit at all. We were up to the speed and came in quite nicely, stayed out for the view, that sort of thing. But this just soaked up all the bumps and stuff. It was like I was on my bike. It was really nice and calm and just had enough power to do anything you want. I loved it. Really did like it. I don't think I'd get one. I'd get the Meteor over this because I really liked the Meteor for a Sunday ride in my best suit, you know, that sort of stuff. But there's a massive following for these. My onesie. There's a massive following for Royal Enfields. I think they've done an amazing job with this bike. Not only does it look special, but it feels special when you ride it. And the other thing that occurred to me is my grandfather would have known what the Interceptor, the original Interceptor, was like if he'd had one that sort of age group. Then you come to our age and perhaps our children, they don't know where our modern bikes have come from and haven't had the joy of riding those really classic bikes. And now with these modern classics coming up, it's not just your granddad that has had that experience, it's now their grandchildren or our children that are having that experience, so that they can work out where bikes came from and appreciate these older style bikes. I think it's just a really great thing that people are doing now, especially Royal Enfield. And as I said, I really love this aqua stripe, or teal, is it aqua teal? I don't know.
Mate, I
like
can't
that.
comment on a colour. You have to ask a lady what the colour is, because it'd be muted corn.
Some squatch. But I do like that. I quite like it. It just adds a bit of difference rather than it just being a black bike. Really, really do like it. And you even get a little cover like that.
Oh, hey.
It's awesome, isn't it? Awesome. Love the bike. Love the bike. Go out and buy one. Visit Damerells. Thanks to Steve and everybody at Damerells that lets us take these bikes out. They are great. Go and visit them and buy yours. If you like the video, give it a massive thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button wherever that might be. And we'll see you in the next video.